This episode is sponsored by Squarespace. On my site, you'll find my recipes, articles, videos, and more, all designed with Squarespace. Get 10% off your first Squarespace order by visiting squarespace.com/Babish. The link is in the video description. Choco and I just drove into Navajoa, a town about 7 hours north of Mazatlan. I've come here looking for the best machaca. Machaca is a breakfast dish that is very common in northern Mexico, but famous here in Sonora. I'm here to learn and explore as much as I can about this iconic dish, and then I'll head home and show you how to make it yourself. Welcome to Mexico. Pruébalo. One of the oldest forms of preservation is drying meat, but the sun-drying of fresh beef with chiles and other indigenous herbs and spices, that was developed by the ranchers, cowboys, and miners of northern Mexico in the states of Chihuahua and Sonora. That dried beef, or machaca, was cooked with salsas to rehydrate the meat, or simmered in thick stews called guisos, and used to fill flautas, tacos, or burritos. Those rancheros needed a hearty breakfast, one that would last them all day, so they cooked it with scrambled eggs and potatoes for protein and energy. But a lot of time, tradition, and hard work go into the making of machaca before it lands on a table and gets wrapped in a tortilla. To better understand this process, I'm meeting with Adelita, whose family is famous for making some of the best machaca in Navajoa.
Pues el proceso de nuestra machaca puedo decir que el 100% casi es artesanal.
To make machaca, you take fresh beef, cut it super thin, then partially dry it in the sun in mosquiteros, or mesh cages that keep the insects out. Fully dry it in gas or wood-burning ovens, pound, shred, or grind it up in mills, and finally season it up with salt and sometimes garlic and other spices. In Navajoa, machaca has been made this way for generations. But not far from here, I heard about someone that's adding their own personal sazon and creative flair to this dish. So my Airbnb host just told me that there's a place in Obregon about 45 minutes away from Navajoa that has some of the best mesquite smoked machaca in Sonora. So that's where we're heading right now so I can taste it.
¿Qué onda, Rick? ¿Cómo estás?
Muy
Bienvenido.
Bien. Gracias.
¿Qué ha habido? Qué gusto tenerte por acá. Bueno, Rick, pues bienvenido a casa.
Gracias.
Carnes Azuetas, Supercarnes de Obregón. El proceso de la machaca es, pues primero se corta la carne, se pulpea delgadita, luego pasa el proceso de salar, se sala la carne, después se tiende. Obviamente dependiendo si está haciendo frío, si está lloviendo, metemos al horno o se tiende en el sol, en un tendedero que tenemos solar. Después del tendedero, después de 24 horas, se pasa al proceso de asado al carbón y nosotros tratamos de encontrar y de buscar este carbón porque es la clave de la carne asada. Es el sazón, es el sabor que le da incluso hasta el olor a un buen corte, a una buena machaca, una buena cecina.
Okay.
Y de ahí pasa al primer molino, luego pasa al segundo molino que es el despellejador, después se seca, se pasa al área de empaque y ya después se pasa al área de venta.
The smoke adds so much depth and complexity to the machaca. I'm taking a couple of bags home with me, and I can't wait to start cooking. Choco and I just got back to Mazatlan, and I brought back a lot of machaca, like a lot. A lot. But I'm really excited because I'm gonna get to try the smoked version and the not smoked version in my favorite recipe that I'm gonna show you. It's a really simple preparation, but it's really amazingly flavorful. I'm gonna cook for the boys today. We've been on an 8-day shoot. It was really incredibly fun, but we did a lot of work. And we're just gonna kick back and celebrate and eat all of this machaca, have an amazing big breakfast. And to do that, I'm taking some inspiration from Navajoa and making chilaquiles rojos, frijoles negros, fried eggs, and machaca a la mexicana. So machaca is actually really hard to find in the US. There are a few places that actually have it, sell it, make it, but if you can't find it, I still want you to try this dish. And so what I've done is I've written out a little sub recipe for using beef jerky, or here it's called carne seca. And so you just want to use really good quality beef jerky, using the same weight amount that I give in the recipe. And then all you do is chop it up, put it in your food processor until it becomes almost the consistency of machaca. This is incredible. I've seen a lot of recipes for machaca and I've never seen anybody try this before. And to be honest, I wasn't sure if this was gonna work, but I'm really impressed that this machine did this, but like the texture is almost identical to the machaca. I would be very happy to eat this right now. So yeah, this is the way you should be making machaca in the US if you can't find it. So the first thing we're gonna do is make the beans. So you need about 6 cups of beans. I actually made fresh black beans last night, but you can totally use canned beans. You want 6 cups of beans and maybe about a cup and a half of the cooking liquid. First step is heat the lard. So I'm using half a cup of lard. If you don't want to use lard, you can also use vegetable oil. Just use a neutral oil. You can flavor it with a little bit of garlic and onion if you want. Step 2, stand back, put an apron on, and pour the beans in. They're gonna splatter. It's just a part of the process, but they're gonna add this amazingly delicious flavor. Step 3, cook it down until most of the liquid is evaporated. Step 4, use a potato smasher and smash the beans until they're really, really creamy and thick. Okay, so the beans are done. So now we're gonna work on the chilaquiles. So the salsa for the chilaquiles is kind of a combination of green and red. I like both and I couldn't decide. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna kind of do a little bit of both. So we're gonna start with tomatillos. So I've got 4 medium tomatillos. I've got 3 cloves of garlic. I'm not chopping any of this because I'm gonna throw it in the blender, but first we're gonna cook it down in some chicken broth. Okay. So if it was just me and Sebas, I would put a lot more chile de árbol, but because of Juan and Gerry, I'm only gonna use 5. God. But I'm also gonna add some chile guajillo. So this will give it a little bit more red color. It's not gonna be completely red, but I like the way that guajillo and chile de árbol play with each other. You get like a little bit of sweetness from the guajillo and then you get the heat from the árbol. But you do need to take the seeds out of this, not because they're hot, but just because they're slightly bitter. If you grind them up, it'll just give you an off flavor. So just take them out, take the stems off. It's a little woody. Okay, so for a little added seasoning, I'm gonna add a half a teaspoon of whole cumin seeds and a half teaspoon of Mexican oregano. If you don't have Mexican oregano, use Italian. And then I've got my chicken stock. Put that in. And last thing, I'm gonna add 1 teaspoon of salt. And I'm using sea salt, but you can use kosher, 4 grams. And then we're just gonna take this over to the stove. We're gonna bring this to a boil. I'm gonna cover it and let it simmer for about 10 minutes, just till everything gets cooked through. Okay, so while the salsa for the chilaquiles is cooking, we're gonna work on the prep for the machaca. We're gonna start with all the vegetables. I love the flavor combination of white onion, chili poblano, jalapenos, tomatoes, and garlic. These vegetables also happen to be green, white, and red, the colors of the Mexican flag, which is why they call it a la mexicana. Okay, so I have my 2 machacas. This is the smoky one, this is the not smoky one. So in the recipe, I've written 80 grams or 2 cups of machaca. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to make 1 skillet with 1 cup of this and 1 skillet with 1 cup of this. So in the recipe, if you make this at home, just use 1 skillet and it's all gonna be fine. But I just wanna taste the difference because they're very, very different. That mesquite adds a very distinctive smoky flavor. The first thing we're gonna do is fry the machaca in a little bit of lard. It's gonna go really fast, so make sure that you stir frequently. It's probably gonna take about a minute, minute and a half. All you wanna do is get a little bit of color and you'll start to smell the intense aroma of the dried beef and a little bit of nuttiness and a little bit of toastiness, and then just take it out. So now in the same skillet, add a little bit more lard and then add the poblano, the garlic, the onion. Cook that until they're really soft and tender, but not turning brown, about 5 to 6 minutes. Then add the tomatoes, Let that cook down until they get really, really soft and jammy and a lot of their liquid evaporates. And then we're gonna put everything back together, add 2 cups of water, and let that simmer until the machaca is really soft and tender. So we just blended up all the vegetables and spices for the chilaquiles. So now what we're gonna do, the last step, is we're gonna fry it in a little bit of lard. It's gonna give it a little bit of caramelization. It's gonna bring out all those nutty flavors. It's gonna be really delicious. The only thing left to do is fry the eggs, toss the totopos in the salsa, and call the boys over to eat.
Okay, I'm ready. Are you guys ready? Yeah.
Provecho.
Provecho.
You guys definitely try machaca.
Try machaca.
Pruébalo.
Perfect.
Thanks again to Squarespace for sponsoring today's episode. They have been a great partner in bringing this show and others to life. From websites to online stores to domains and analytics, Squarespace is the all-in-one platform for you to build your online presence. With their SEO tools, you know that your site will appear in more search results and get found by more people. If you want to try it for yourself, you can start your free trial today by visiting squarespace.com/Babish to get 10% off your first purchase.
Choco.